Basically, I welcome everyone to the meeting, and hopefully we will have a fruitful discussion afterwards. But we have a few presentation, basically trying to summarize the highlights from the SmartChain project over the last 3 years. We have the presentation from you, Allan and Ali, about circular seafood supply chains driven by optimization and simulation. Then followed by a video presentation because Pernille can't be with us on increased utilization and valorization of marine rest raw materials. Then we have a vision-based robotic manipulation by Ekrem Misimi. And then lastly, we have this design of a blockchain-based traceability system for seafood supply chains by Shanshan Jiang.
So thank you very much, everybody. And good morning, especially to you up there, northwest. We've entitled this presentation Circular Seafood Supply Chains Driven by Optimization and Simulation, to basically give you the attendees an idea of our methodological approach to increasing circularity within the seafood, not seafoods, supply chains. And so basically we have been working seen from a optimization point of perspective and also from a simulation point of perspective. And I will start giving a couple of slides. Yes, thank you, Ali. Finding the right mouse here. I will start giving a couple of highlights from basically what we tried to achieve, and then I will leave over to Ali to present a little bit more in detail, and then I will end off at the very end. So we have 15 minutes, probably 14 minutes now. So you could say that basically the grand objective of this work is to enhance sustainability in fisheries and aquaculture, the value chains of these, by minimizing waste and also maximizing utilization of raw materials. That is basically what we've been working on for the past 3 years as a consortium as a whole. And on the right-hand side here, we see a figure from FAO and UNEP report reporting on how much the dazzling number or frightening number of 35% of all fish is basically at some point lost due to very many reasons, as we can see in the small with the small letters and in the graphics, in the infographics here. Basically means that much of the material being caught at sea or also produced in fish farms are never really reach the plate of a consumer, and therefore there's a lot of waste that we would try to utilize much better. Our role in the project here has been basically looking into 2 different work packages. One where we were developing optimization models, and one where we were looking into building, developing, and also testing out a simulation framework. And we have this picture here, which has been borrowed kindly from a website, Iceland Seafood, which tries to explain the different layers, giving you the big picture of how we can see a seafood supply chain from basically the seaside, so from the harvest onto the shore side. So via processing, the transports there, the local distribution, local transport, retailers, and marketing. So basically following, you could say, downstream the supply chain of the seafood and fish. Then you could say that we have been mostly concentrating on the first parts of the supply chain, so relatively upstream from catch, and especially on the onshoring of the catch, the first primary and also secondary processing of this. And then we haven't not really looked very much into more downstream transport, warehousing, and so on processes. However, this figure hopefully gives you an idea of some of the connections between these. So in the first layer here, they talk about a transportation layer. So basically a logistics layer that shows you exactly the different processes that are taking place, activities. Then they talk about a super chain or a supply chain. So basically interpreting this from a transportation network into a more supply chain oriented, high information intensive layer. And then there's of course also both the business side, so the analytics side of this, and the marketing that we have not really looked into. So our role here was to develop optimization models that are optimizing utilization of available raw materials, looking into production planning. So how can that interact in a better way, if possible, between the catch and the processing, and also more downline into the usage of rest raw materials. And this work, especially with work package 2, has been focusing very much on the individual company level. So taking departure in the work we've done with especially Brim in Iceland. Very good collaboration. Thank you very much for that. But also with Sigurdur, also had a single project there, and also a very interesting and nice collaboration there. So there we would look at a single, you could say, company. Then on the other side, in work package 5, we've been developing this simulation framework, trying to create a framework to assess scenarios for enhancing sustainability performance, basically from farm to fork or from sea to whatever plate we have here. And in this setting, we are more looking at this as an industry level. So instead of just following one company, we follow several companies, different stakeholders throughout the supply chain. And we actually model also actually to the very end of the retailer side in this simulation model. So here it's not completely correct that I said we've only focused on the upside. We also have looked into the downstream of the supply chain. So these are basically the two parts that we've been working on, and then I will leave over to Ali to give you an idea.
Yeah, just morning everyone, and thank you for being here. So now I give you more detail on what we have been working on during the SmartChain project, and in the work package 2, as Allan mentioned, we have been focusing on optimization and using optimization techniques in the seafood value chain, and trying to enhancing the efficiency, sustainability, and circularity. One of the main research questions that they have been focused on is to how to optimize routing and scheduling of Brim's vessel, considering their production decision and also final product revenue and energy cost. So as you can see in the right side of the slide, one of the problems that we focused on was to determine the optimal timing and routing for fishing operation for the Brim. And so they have some vessels and they want to have a routing and a scheduling plan for them, and define where they have to go and when they have to go. So when they go there, how long they should stay there. And so when they go there, if they should go to other fields or if they should return to the harbor. And the important thing is here is that the quality, and we know that the quality of the fish that is caught in the first day of a trip is different to the quality of the fish that is caught in the second day and then landed in the harbor. Because they have a quality check, and if the quality is satisfied, then the fish will be sent to the fillet production, which is low energy intensive and also less consuming water. But if the quality is not satisfied, then the fish will be used for fish meal or fish oil production. So our data-driven model is expected to help them determining the optimal timing and routing, reduce the oil consumption in fishing and production operation, while considering the importance of quality of landed fish for optimal processing. So we developed a mathematical model, and we consider an objective function includes revenue and cost, and then our model is subjected to some constraint from vessel routing, scheduling constraint, capacity in both vessel and production, and also fuel capacity, fish availability and quota, and raw material quality constraint. Then using this mathematical model, we try to solve and to verify and validate the model in the initial step. And we could solve the model in really small sizes, because if we wanted to solve the problem for real life sizes, it is not possible to use it without developing some advanced methods for solving that we have in the operation research. Then we have some scenario analysis, and we try to build our scenario based on the real data from BREEAM, and we try to ensure that the analysis is grounded in practical operation and realities. So the scenarios focused on trying to see how the oil prices, market prices, and fish availability and quality could affect the result and the sustainability and circularity of the value chain. Then we have some preliminary insight from scenario analysis, and I just brought some of them in this slide. So the first one is that is really important is that we need to have a balance between the quality, the landed fish quality, and the time of fishing trip. And we could say that shorting fishing trip result in fresher fish that could boost the utilization and also increase the revenue. But we have to consider that if we have shorter fishing trip, then we will have increasing in the energy usage, and because we have more frequent trips. This is where our data-driven model can facilitate decision making. And the other thing is that the importance of data on fish availability, because if we have better quality of data on the availability of fish, then it makes decision making really easier than where we have to go and when we have to catch the fish. And it could affect the better routes, and timing could affect the freshness of the fish, and also could decrease the operational cost and the energy consumption. So as I told you, we have to do more on this model, because we need to solve it on the real life sizes if we want to align with the practical challenges that the seafood industry faces. And we need to apply some advanced method if we want to focus more on the availability data on the fish availability. And if we do this, then we will have further insights that could be useful for the seafood industry. So this is a summary of what we have been doing in work package 2. And but in the work package 5, we focus on evaluation of circularity and sustainability in seafood value chain. And as Allan mentioned, we use a simulation-based analysis for that. And the main research question that we have been focusing on was how to evaluate the sustainability and circularity of seafood value chain. And as you know, seafood value chain is a really complex value chain. And then we choose the system dynamics approach for simulating the problem, because it could catch the complex interaction between different factors and stakeholders that we have in the value chain. So we use the system dynamics for that to model and simulate the problem. We use the different sustainability criteria that are obtained from work package 3, and also we use the data that comes from the supply chain mapping in the work package 1, I think, to determine the main losses and waste point in the seafood value chain. So we focus on the white value chain, and as you can see in the right side of the slide, just a summary, the fish are harvested, and then they will be sent to the processing company, and after processing they will be sent to the wholesaler, and from there they could be exported or could be sent directly to the retailer. And we have different loss and waste in different stages of the value chain, and we focused on some of them. Based on this methodology, we built a system dynamic simulation model. And I just brought an overview of interactions between different modules in the seafood value chain. We categorized the seafood value chain in 4 modules, from fish and restaurant material supply, processing, retailing, and restaurant material processing and recycling. And you can see that they have interaction with each other. Based on this overview, we built our causal loop diagram to define the interactions of the variables and parameters that we have in the value chain. And based on the causal loop diagram, we built the system dynamic simulation framework that you can see in the right side of this slide, and it's referred to stock and flow diagram. And you can find that it starts from harvesting and processing, then restaurant material processing and retailing. And we have considered different criteria, sustainability criteria, from water consumption in processing, energy consumption in processing, loss in harvesting, and byproduct production. And in the retailing stage, we focused on the amount of the wasted fish that ends in the landfill or being used for biogas production or donated. So this is just a brief summary of the system dynamic model that we have developed. Then, based on the system dynamic model, we have some preliminary findings from the scenario analysis. We developed and we used some scenarios from 4 scenarios now that it could be extended in more scenarios. The first one is the potential impact of advanced preservation technology on fishing quality. And in this scenario, we try to define if we have more fish landed by high quality vessel, like having better freezing capacity or freezing technology or freezing capacity, then what will happen in the downstream of the supply chain? And we found that it could improve the fish utilization, while we will use the fish for more human consumption, and it can reduce the spoilage and lower energy and water consumption could be expected. But what is important here is that having a better and high quality vessel will be costly. But we could argue that we could say that the initial cost could be compensated through higher quality of fish sales and making better of use of catch if we have high-tech vessel. In the second scenario, we investigated if putting regulation on the amount of restaurant material that should be brought to the harbor. What will happen for the byproduct? And we found that it can increase the amount of byproduct production in the end of the supply chain in the downstream. But again, we have some challenges because increasing the amount of byproduct could affect the amount of primary product, because we will have some storage capacity that can reduce the amount of fish that are landed in the harbor. But we can say that if we can combine this scenario with the first scenario, then we can balance the reduction of landed fish, because if we have best quality of fish in harbor, then we will have more primary products. So we can say that if we can combine these two scenarios, then the balance of the reduction in the landed fish could be expected. The third scenario is focusing on the behavior of and shifting the behavior of consumer to use frozen fillet, and we found that shifting demand to frozen fillet could reduce the unsold fish, but again we will have some increase in energy and water because we will need to produce more frozen fillet. And again, we can say that if we can combine this scenario with the first scenario that have less consumption in energy and water, then we can compensate it. And the last scenario is focusing on the retailer side. We put some regulation and penalties for over ordering, and we found that these penalties could reduce the sending unsold fish to the landfill site. while the retailers could try to improve their inventory management and increase the biogas production. So we found that putting some tax adjustment could be useful for this part, and we will need to investigate this scenario more in our future study.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. So these are, as Ali says, thank you, Ali, all the preliminary findings, and I will try. Oh no, just a second. Yeah, you see the screen still? Yeah, okay. Am I here? Correct. Yeah. So on the first part here, we believe that the work that we've done have given some inspiration for future planning and management methods within the production side and logistics side of the company level here. So for a company like Brim or similar companies, how can they make use of more data-driven decision making on, for instance, where to go, how long to stay there, which quality do they arrive back to harbor with, and how much energy does it take to process this. So this is the first part, the first type of models that we've done. So trying to integrate both the sea side, the processing side, and the energy side. And then the other one just presented by Ali is a framework that we hope has potentials to support practitioners and policymakers when they are assessing implications of various development scenarios that they might be looking into. So if something gets more expensive, something that you want to prohibit happen, or if you want to tax higher, then we can change that in the model scenario and run this in the simulation framework to see basically what happens. Then our future research agenda here, we're trying to look into this crystal ball, I think it's called, to see what could happen from here and onwards. Ideally, we will need more validation of our case studies for the work that we've been doing in the system dynamics framework. That we are still in collaboration with especially Magnus from SINTEF about, and we would certainly like to finish this in order to be able to disseminate our results in scientific journal. Then we believe that this model has potentials to the stakeholders, industry stakeholders. And in order to arrive at that, we of course would either ourselves or make the first steps towards interact with industry stakeholders, depending on which accessibility we have for these, or at least make our reporting at the end of the project here make other people able to take up this idea. And further develop this. And then finally, and this goes a little bit across both work packages and even onto, we will hear from Ekrem a little bit later on, new technologies from, we talked to NTNU the other day about AI and drone technology within monitoring, surveying the availability of fish. So there are some new technologies that are probably arriving in a few years' time that could further make the availability of fish in certain fishing fields and in seasons much more reliable. So given that, we would have much better data basis for doing the data-driven optimization, and therefore actually being able to push this into real industry levels of industry companies in the industry. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. Thank you. And I'm sorry that you cannot really see my very fancy shirt here. I've bought this very nice shirt which has some fish on it. But then Ali has to be the only. Yeah, Ali can see it and was very impressed at least. So with this, thank you very much for listening to this first part here. And of course, we would like to interact with questions now, but also later, and also invite everybody who would see this in recorded video or whatever to reach out to us for further discussion. Yes, thank you.
Thanks very much, Allan and Ali.
I'm Pernille Skavang, and I work as a research scientist at SINTEF Ocean in Norway. I've been working in the SmartChain project in work package 2, and in this work package and this task, which has also been in collaboration with an industry partner, we have been working with fish rest raw materials in order to increase utilization and valorization of valuable, high-quality marine resources. So today I will present some examples on how improved utilization of rest raw materials from the seafood sector can contribute to circularity, and also the importance of industry collaboration for useful and lasting sustainable solutions. So the seafood industry produces a great amount of rest raw material every year, and many actors along the value chain are working hard to increase the utilization and add value to these resources. Rest raw materials are parts of the fish or of other animals, which is not primarily intended for human consumption. For fish, this can include, for instance, the head, backbone, trimmings, blood, skin and scales, and viscera. However, these resources can be of high quality and may still be suitable for human consumption. The different types of rest raw material have different biochemical composition, both based on the part of the fish in question, but also depending on the fish species itself. In Norway, the pelagic sector has 100% resource utilization, and aquaculture is close to this, where only the blood is not fully utilized. In the whitefish sector, more and more of the total resources are utilized. However, large volumes of resources are still not used. This is mainly due to the lack of profitability and technological solutions to bring it to shore, despite the good quality and many possible applications for these fractions. To achieve a circular economy for these sectors, we must aim to use the resources in other cycles and thus create values to make them profitable. There are many ways to process the raw material, depending both on the type of raw material and what it can and will be used for. As mentioned, the biochemical composition varies among different fractions of rest raw material and impacts how and also for what they are utilized. For instance, viscera has a high lipid or oil content, while other fractions like skin generally have a higher content of protein, and fractions like bones contain higher amounts of minerals. Therefore, the way of processing of different fractions and also species will depend on the biochemical composition for optimal use of the different parts. Fish meal and fish oil are often produced from raw material which is not used for human consumption, such as rest raw material, some small species, or bycatch. This is used for feed, but nevertheless has a good nutritional content. Ingredients and components from marine resources are often easily digestible and have a positive health effect. Marine ingredients are in high demand, and the resources should be used for as high value products as possible. Enzymatic hydrolysis is a process which is more expensive than production of meal and oil. However, the process is more gentle towards the raw material, and since the raw material used is typically human grade, as well as the nutrients being well preserved in the process, the ingredients produced from enzymatic hydrolysis can be used for food and supplement for human consumption. During enzymatic hydrolysis, enzymes are added, which breaks down long protein chains to shorter protein peptides, and these peptides are soluble in a water fraction. This is then called hydrolysis. Consumption of seafood and marine ingredients have shown to possess beneficial health effects. Proteins are the most important nutritional building blocks of the body and are essential to get enough of through a varied diet. Marine proteins are not only showing several health benefits, but if we are to meet the demand for more food and protein, which follow the increasing world populations in the years to come, marine resources will play a very important role. Collagen and gelatin are terms that you've possibly heard in your everyday life and which are ingredients of. Collagen is a specific type of protein which can be found in the body of both humans and animals, particularly in bones and cartilage, skin, hair, and tendons. In the skin, it's the collagen that keeps the skin firm and smooth, and as you get older, the body produces less collagen, and that is how wrinkles are formed. Collagen is often taken as supplements by people who want to provide the body with more collagen when it produces less itself. For example, to get firmer skin, but it can also be able to help with joint pains, for instance, in the knees. So collagen is made up of long coiled protein structures. And when these are uncoiled, which happens when heat is applied, the long protein chains form what is called gelatin. Gelatin has gelling properties and is therefore widely used in cooking, for instance in gummy candies and desserts such as jelly. By adding specific enzymes to gelatin, the long chains are then split into smaller peptides, which are called hydrolyzed collagen peptides. These can have bioactive properties and can be used for high-value applications such as supplements and cosmetics, or for medical purposes like wound healing. To extract these proteins from rest raw materials such as bone or skin, it's both the most gentle and also gives the most yield to do this using heat and thus extract it as gelatin. In addition to being valuable ingredients which are contributing to value creation from increased utilization of rest raw material, there are also other reasons for choosing marine ingredients. Gelatin, for instance, is, as mentioned, an ingredient in many food and supplement products, such as gummy candy, desserts, puddings, and capsules for dietary supplements. Today, gelatin from pigs is mostly used, as well as from cattle for supplement capsules. However, for both religious and dietary reasons, there are many people who cannot consume these products. Marine gelatin is therefore very relevant as a substitute for gelatin from pigs and cattle, as an alternative for those who for various reasons cannot eat this. In addition, marine ingredients tend to have a lower climate footprint than similar ingredients from land-based animals. To achieve the highest possible quality of the ingredients, the raw material itself has to be treated correctly in order to maintain its quality. Quality cannot be restored, and marine resources are very susceptible to rapid deterioration, especially in fatty fish where the polyunsaturated fatty acids, such as omega-3, are highly susceptible to oxidation. Therefore, it's very important to know how to best maintain the quality of the raw material. Freezing to low temperatures slows the deterioration and oxidation processes, but also quick processing of the raw material after harvest will maintain the quality and help provide high-quality ingredients and products. The quality is very important and even a determining factor for what the raw materials and ingredients can be used for. There is an increasing demand and desire for ingredients to be local as well as of high quality. Many of these ingredients can be used for human consumption in food, supplements, and even pharmaceuticals, although there are strict requirements depending on the intended use. Feed is also an important use for such ingredients, in particular fish oil and fish meal. With the increasing population in the years to come, There will be a greater need for food, but also for animal feed, for both of which marine ingredients will play a very important role. Moreover, the pet food market has been booming in the last years, a market which has a very high willingness to pay. This can also be an alternative application, which can create great value from these collections. Often, research projects are performed as a collaboration between R&D and one or more industry partners. Such collaborations are very useful and necessary, as well as educational by offering exchange of expertise and experience. The industry may have specific needs or requests which are relevant to their operations or challenges that they face in their facilities or processes. These can often be quite different than the challenges faced in similar processes in the laboratory. This gives valuable insights into industry-specific issues, as well as the potential for development of customized and optimized solutions, which in turn can increase sustainability and resource efficiency of processes. Collaborations also create market-relevant solutions, which meet the demand of the market and of relevant industry actors. Long-term cooperation can give a broader understanding of the industry's development and challenges over time. Collaborating with a research facility allows the industry to test processes on a laboratory scale and to develop and test the process without having to invest in a new facility or process line. Thus, they can first make sure that the process is working as desired and creating value prior to investing and upscaling. So, to summarize, increased utilization of resources and valorization of end products is key to achieve circularity. We must aim to use fish and the rest raw materials for the highest possible step of the value chain, thus maximizing the value of these resources. Marine ingredients are high-quality components which are shown to possess beneficial health effects and can be good alternatives to land-based equivalents. Simultaneously, marine raw materials must be treated quickly and gently in order to preserve the high quality and thus ensure the greatest value creation of these resources. Thank you very much for your attention, and please reach out if there are any questions.
Okay. So I'm going to present some of the results we've been generating in visual-based robotic manipulation for prehensile and non-prehensile manipulation of food, primarily fish objects. This activity has been going across two central tasks concerning sensing, which is task 2.1, and with a focus on detection and localization of food and fish objects, and then segmentation, clustering, and extraction of objects in RGBD space and point cloud space. I'm going to explain what that means in a while. And then after that's done, we proceeded with extraction of relevant geometric features in order to be able to localize, classify the objects to be manipulated. So what does this mean? This is exemplified with these two images. So you have these objects, random objects in the workspace of a robot, and you have a camera which is mounted on the robot or which is static over the robot workspace, overlooking the entire workspace, and the robot as it is depicted here in the second picture, where we see the entire workspace of the robot from the static camera, which is eye-to-hand configuration. So in this way, we get both a global and local view of the scene that we need to work with. So in this second image, you see actually a point cloud representation of the scene. It's a colored point cloud, so you have texture and color of the objects in the scene. And it doesn't say anything to the robot, this scene, so it's just the first thing you acquire from the camera. And then from this scene, you need to segment the workspace as a relevant region of interest. And then from this region of interest, you need to extract and segment the objects that you want to do something with, like manipulating, sliding, grasping, and things like that. But in order to do so, you need also to extract some geometrical information, like how long is the object, what's the width of the object, the height of the object, because all of that information is very important for the robot in order to be able to know where to go and where the object is localized precisely in a coordinate system with a reference to the base coordinate system of the robot, and then initiate a manipulation task, which can be grasping as a prehensile manipulation, or some other more advanced manipulation tasks such as pushing or sliding. So how does this extraction of features from these objects look like? So in the upper image, you see some crosses and some lines, and these are actually some of the geometrical features we need to extract in order to control the robot. So if we want to grasp and manipulate a fish, like in the upper image, then you need to extract features like center of mass, which is the cross, and you need the principal axis, because that tells a lot about the orientation of the object you're trying to grasp. So the red cross means that the robot is there and it's looking to go to the green cross where the object is located. And that is done iteratively by a so-called visual surveying approach. All the control is done in the image space. And then when the convergence is achieved, as we're going to look in another video, then the robot is ready to execute the task and grasp the object. So this is a 4DOF control scheme. 4DOF means 4 degrees of freedom, meaning that you can move in X, Y, and Z rotation. So there are X, Y, and Z and rotation. So there are 4 degrees of freedom for the robot manipulability or maneuverability when it comes to executing a task. So this is just a demonstration of how a robot executes this. So the camera, which is mounted on the robot, localizes the object, and as you see, it iteratively adjusts the pose up until convergence. So when the gripper is aligned with an object, then the robot gets the command to go and grasp the object. It's completely visual-based control. Sometimes you need to think a bit more. up until the convergence is achieved. So the scheme is completely autonomous. So same hyperparameters of the scheme function for a large variety of food objects. So this is just more interesting to exemplify with some seafood objects. And then that was an example of so-called prehensile manipulation, that you need to grasp and lift the object. But sometimes when you have large-sized fish or other types of objects that you actually either you can't grasp and lift them, or because you consider that some other type of action is more relevant or pertinent for the task, then you do a so-called non-prehensile manipulation, which is basically you manipulate the object or the fish without actually lifting it. So you can that involves some kind of a pushing or sliding of the fish. And so what we did is to extend this 4-DOF prehensile scheme and add more advanced stuff when it comes to being able to execute these non-prehensile tasks. So one of the before I run this video, let me just explain what is the task here. So the task here is to send this object, a dummy fish object, to a specific desired pose that you want to send it to. And this is done by having an eye-to-hand configuration. There is a camera in the just barely visible here that overlooks the entire workspace of the robot. And then with this camera, we localize where the object is. We segment it to extract the features. We know where the center of mass is and other features that are needed to control the robot. And then when it's done, the robot gets to the fish, and then with some sliding actions, sends this fish to the desired pose where you want to have it for further manipulation, let's say. So here it goes very fast. It's also based on visual serving. So when the convergence is achieved, when we've achieved the desired pose, then the robot goes up, and that's where we want to have the fish object. It could be whatever other desired pose within this workspace of these 4 sticky notes, and the robot will be able to manipulate the fish to an arbitrary desired pose from an arbitrary initial pose of the fish. So the contributions in this project from our part have been to develop a prehensile and non-prehensile robot control scheme for manipulation of objects. The prehensile scheme was demonstrated with grasping of different food objects, while the non-prehensile scheme was demonstrated with sliding actions, as you saw in the video, preceding video. That's my presentation.
Morning, everyone. My name is Shanshan Jiang. I'm a senior research scientist in SINTEF Digital in Norway. I will present the work we have done in SmartChain work package 4 about the design of a blockchain-based traceability system for the seafood supply chains. So blockchain is a decentralized distributed ledger technology that has been applied in many domains and applications. Data in the blockchain is recorded in a chronological order and approved by a consensus mechanism so that the data cannot be altered or tampered. Therefore, a blockchain offers properties like tamper-proof, data security, and transparency. So there are different types of blockchain networks, and consortium blockchains have been widely used in supply chain applications. Traceability in a supply chain covers two related but distinct concepts: check and trace. Checking means the ability to follow up the downstream path of a product along a supply chain, while tracing means the ability to determine the origin of a product and its ingredients using the data from upstream. Current EU regulations require one step forward, one step back traceability, which means that companies must know who they are buying from and to whom they are selling. However, end-to-end traceability along the whole supply chain is not required by the regulation. The motivation for a blockchain-based traceability system is to improve the transparency, circularity, and sustainability of the supply chain. And previous studies and projects showed that blockchain-based traceability integrated with the Internet of Things, like sensors, can provide benefits and advantages over traditional traceability systems. For example, with improved and fine-grained traceability, tamper-proof data, real-time and transparent data sharing, automated compliance to regulatory requirements, and efficient and targeted recall. So we want to apply blockchain to facilitate data sharing along the supply chain and achieve end-to-end and finer granular traceability. So the goal of our work is to define the specifications of such a blockchain-based traceability system in the seafood supply chain. So we have defined high-level requirements and system functionality specification and proposed a high-level system architecture applicable to different supply chains. Furthermore, we have provided data models for traceability data in the seafood supply chain. We analyzed the requirements from the following three sources, including regulatory requirements, such as the EU food law, and the literature review of relevant technical systems, and the experience and knowledge from previous projects. So this slide shows the high-level functionality requirements for the blockchain-based traceability system as synthesized from the three sources. So here you can see these requirements cover different aspects like the data and storage management, user and access management, and the links with the on-chain data, the data on the blockchain. The relation between the data stored on the blockchain and on the off-chain systems, and the user and interaction through the user interface, and the integration with stakeholder assistance, and also the generation of traceability QR codes, check and trace, and monitoring and alert. So the core functionality for the traceability system is to be able to check and trace the assets and objects called the traceable units. So the check and trace functionality consists of asset management, including a definition of the traceable units and traceability queries, for example, to see the location and status of the assets and the history of the events and state changes along the supply chain. So these requirements aspects are applicable to any traceability system, but the details on the data modeling depends on the specific supply chains. For example, a common data model regarding what data should be stored and how data should be modeled along the supply chain is required. So we proposed a 4-layer high-level architecture for the blockchain-based traceability system for seafood supply chains, as illustrated in this figure. The business layer represents the business activities of the actors involved in the whole supply chain. Different key data capture points are identified, and associated data to be recorded are modeled in the data models, which we will see later. The traceability data layer represents the data collection and storage, as well as the communication with the blockchain. And the blockchain layer facilitates the traceability information traceability and improve the security of the seafood traceability. A key design is about how data transactions are recorded in the blockchain to leverage its anti-tampering and data security properties. And finally, the application layer consists of different applications using the data collected in the traceability system through the blockchain. Data modeling focuses on what traceability data should be gathered at which point and on which level. For example, at the batch or pallet, product or fish level in the supply chain, and also model the relationship between the data, the traceability data, and the data sources. The data models are based on the data service and analysis of the supply chain information flows in Norway and Iceland performed in Work Package 1. And the data models are generalized from the to give common models that are applicable to other contexts. Traceability data are data linked to traceable units and traceability events. For example, they give the information about the seafood quality, the temperature, humidity, and the freshness, etc. So those data are collected at the data capture points, either manually or automatically through the sensors or the integration with the ERP and other systems. The data models define the key data elements in the seafood supply chain. So some of the data are stored in the systems operated by different stakeholders, and some are stored and shared on the blockchain. The information model is modeled using the UML, the modeling language, and it consists of a master model with two core parts, the events and the sensor data that links everything together. So this diagram shows the event model. Firstly, the traceability system records the key events in the supply chain to ensure the end-to-end traceability. So here the classes or boxes in yellow are events. We have defined a number of event types for the key data capture points in the seafood supply chain. For example, event types in the landing stage include landing event, export event, quality inspection event, and reporting event. So these event types can be extended. For example, new event types can be added to the model to provide additional data as needed, for example, for the circularity or sustainability purposes. So each event has a globally unique event ID and is associated with the traceable unit. We have defined a unique keys for the different traceable units. And also the events are associated with the specific stage or the steps in the supply chain, and has the events has different data elements to be recorded for traceability and other purposes, as will be shown in the models later. So here we see that this is the information model for another core element in the traceability system, the sensor data. So the sensor data are mainly used to ensure the quality of the seafood products and to ensure an unbroken cold chain. We also provide detailed models of the sources of the relevant data for the traceability system. So this diagram shows the data related to the catching operations and landing stages from the fishery supply chain, which are the sources for the relevant events and sensor data. For example, when we zoom in, we can see the yellow box representing the landing event. And this event is linked using dotted lines to show the data recorded for this event. So that means here that these landing events have data from the classes of vessel, trip, and catch. And in addition, the blue box represents the sensor data for storage temperature. So similarly, there is a diagram showing the data sources from the processing stage and its relationship with the associated events and sensor data. So to conclude, we have defined a high-level architecture applicable to different supply chains and different seafood supply chains, and generalize the data models applicable to the different contexts. The data models are standard-based and extendable. For example, new events can be added to collect the new types of data as needed. We recommend to use a standard-based, globally unique ideas for the traceability for traceable units. In addition, changes are required in the current practices to ensure the end-to-end and fine granular traceability. For example, some processors mix fish from different vessels into one batch, making it impossible to trace back from which supplier a fish from a batch comes from. So to ensure end-to-end traceability, one-to-one mapping between the batches and catches should be ensured. Details of the work can be found in the SmartChain deliverable D4.1. My presentation. Thank you for your attention.
The question is to Shanshan, how much work would it take to actually build a real, I mean, this is the high level architecture, but if you had to build a TRL level 5, so in the lab kind of small scale blockchain, a real one with data, how would that, can you try to explain that? How would that take? I mean, how long would it take? What would you need? I mean, you would need so much data, I guess, from all different stakeholders. Is that realistic? Can that be done?
Thank you. I think this is a very good question. Yeah. Actually, the implementation, because in a previous project, we have actually done a proof of concept implementation, and it works. So it depends on, as I said earlier, there are different types of blockchains. So some blockchains are actually quite efficient because normally people have the idea, the impression is like the proof of concept blockchain, that's the origin, that the Bitcoin type things is very resource consuming and very demanding, and the performance is not so well. So I mean, yeah, it fits very well in the financial part, but not for the business case, right? But as I also said earlier, the consortium blockchains have been widely applied in the supply chains. So in our proof of concept implementation, we use the called Hyperledger. Hyperledger. There are also a number of these kind of blockchains. So it's actually quite fast in the performance. So what we actually use most of the time in the implementation is actually data modeling to decide, to understand the supply chain, and also decide what the data you can get from each stage and from each stakeholder, and also what are we call the key traceable data, right? Traceability data, because not all the data are required to for the traceability purpose, right? And you only share the data that are required in a way, and then we need a common data model along the whole supply chain. So that's actually, we use a lot of time to say, okay, in the fish catch stage, what are the main data that, like what I have show you this data model, and then we extract what are the events and that need to record, and the data to be recorded on that event, and then afterwards, the implementation in the blockchain is actually quite easy, because there is this we call the API, this application programming interface. So you just using this standard way to communicate with blockchain, and it works, right? So that, as I said earlier, is how do you model the data at what time, and also how do you store those data in the blockchain. So normally we said for the performance, as you said, there will be many data. So normally we say, okay, on the blockchain for performance, we only store this key data, the events and the key data, and maybe some IDs, unique ID, and then you have the something can link to the real to the offline data. We call that's like the stakeholder systems. So that this there is a way that you can trace to retrieve all the detailed data you needed. So to answer your question, the technically from the blockchain side, it's actually becoming more and more mature, and no big barrier to use it. The challenge is more on the business side. One thing is what do you want to share and record on the blockchain, and then who can access it, what.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I mean, it aligns a little bit with what we hear here. What I hear is that in supply chain, I mean, technically it's possible, but there's so much. What is that? Trust, not trust. The difference between the opposite of trust to sharing data in this, so it doesn't really work on the business side, and it's too heavy for them to control also. Okay, good, thanks.
Thank you.
The global ID, is there a consensus on this? Are people using the GSN one code? Is it GTIN the way forward? And way back, we worked a little bit on RFIDs and problems with whether they're unique. So are Asia versus Europe or America coming to one conclusion on how to make the traceability work? Because trust issues are based on transparency, and as Allan said, transparency in supply chain is not the modus operandi.
Yeah. Thank you. All the good questions. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things to answer. I mean, there are a lot of discussion on those things regarding blockchain things. Yes, first is this unique ID. Yes, we said that we need a global unique ID, and for how to so in our work we propose to use standards like GS1, and for GS1 there are also different unique ID, right? Getting or also there is in the transportation there's SSCC, etc. So there is a quite widely used global ID, but some challenges that in some, for example, on the boat or when you catch the fish, there is no unique ID at that stage in the standard. So what we say is that we use the IDs unique. We are able to generate a unique ID locally, right? Then we can have one unique ID for the, for example, the vessel and for the ship and then for the whole of all the catch. Then all the combination of this, we create one unique ID. And then in the blockchain case, the global ID we could also use because when we have this end-to-end blockchain, then each time when you store a data or event on the blockchain, we will generate a unique ID, globally ID, and it could be a QR code associated to that as well. So this is a way for implementation. But as I said, the standards it may not cover everything, right? So sometimes we have to use the specific way to do it. And also regarding the trust, the blockchain, one of the idea is actually the transparency to the data, and that the trust, or we call the trust-free mechanism, because that means because the mechanisms from blockchain we call this consensus mechanism. That means when you upload a data or store a data on the blockchain, this should be that many nodes or many computers or nodes agents, they need to agree that this data is the correct data and then it's stored in the blockchain. And when it's stored on the blockchain, then it cannot be changed. So it means it cannot be tampered. So in this way, there's trust there. So that means when you don't need to know each other, you don't need to trust each other in the supply chain. But when the data are recorded on the blockchain, it's a way approved by a consortium, by a group of participants, right? In a way, it's a trustworthy data, and also everyone who has the access right to the data he can see, then has the can view the data. So that's the other way we said the transparency for the data. So of course, there are also the challenges, as you said, the people have the impression that it's very heavy to do it. And there is the business layer aspects. I think yes, because the challenge is not. For me, I think not mostly the biggest challenge is not from technical side, but more on the business and organizational side. For example, when this traceability, it is not. It's not a regulation doesn't require you to have end-to-end traceability, and then the stakeholder are not motivated to adopt such end-to-end traceability system or the blockchain system. So that's more the barrier I see. Thank you. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you. I see that Rita, you have raised your hand.
Yes. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you very much for a very high quality presentation and a webinar so far. I have a couple of questions. One is actually following up what Shanshan was saying. So during this meeting at the Blue Bio, they actually asked to all of us what would be necessary to implement from a governance point of view to ensure that this type of traceability could actually be put in place, and how could that be done in an European setting. So it's quite interesting what you said, because it comes very much in line of what you mentioned. Another one is actually also for Ekrem, and it has to do to what extent is it far or close to be implemented on a company scale, this type of technology that you developed. This also is a question that came from the audience at the Blue Bio. And how would that affect the overall functioning of the settings we have now for sorting fish, actually? So it's a kind of more general question. I don't know if someone wants to pick it up.
I can answer about that. I mean, lab conditions and industrial conditions are different, so one needs one iteration step in order to be able to make it suitable for some user company. Having said that, it's also important to emphasize that each company is different when it comes to the layout and everything. So it really has to be something that is quite flexible and modular, that is able to be adaptable for different layouts and companies. I guess the sorting points in each company are a bit different. So I guess there has to be a specific design for each user or a standardization, but that's a bit too ambitious. But it can be, I mean, the solution can be made flexible to different users. So as you see, it's a robot, some cameras, and of course the biggest effort there is the control and learning algorithms that have to be trained and fine-tuned for the respective user cases.
Thank you.
Maybe an observation, not really a question, but for a long time hope to believe for seafood industry is that or even any food industry, that the right to enter the market should be minimal level of transparency of information about your processes and products. So blockchain data could help in that. But to be on the market and sell me something as a consumer, the willingness to share the story of the fish or where it comes from or what has happened is not really in the legal sense very, very high. And maybe the European Union, to answer your question, Rita, about what can be done, is to create a driver, a mechanism that can actually drive this transparency and trust issue. That is the core issue. I've listened to agricultural data sharing. The farms don't want to share information. Same for the seafood industry. So the issue is basically, should they be entering the retail store with their products unless having some? And then I don't know what is the level of information. What is the basic level of information? So that is a very interesting question for future projects. And this has been ongoing for more than 25 years in traceability. How can you leverage trust?